Scroll through social media these days without stumbling across some chiro going full WWE on a patient's neck. The now iconic Y-strap tug and the infamous ring-shaped spinal snapper will keep the trademark out, but you know who I'm talking about, have turned adjustments into clickbait performances. These videos are often dramatic, loud, and strangely satisfying to watch. There's always a massive pop, some exaggerated exhale, and a patient who looks like they just met God. It's all very cinematic and completely removed from how responsible chiropractic care actually looks. And leading the charge, a certain Houston-based personality who's made a name and trademark out of turning spinal care into a circus act. You won't hear his name here because, frankly, he's an embarrassment to the profession. The entire technique revolves around yanking someone's spine with a strap or a towel. While growling phrases like crack-a-lackin' or crack addicts, you know it's more about views than vertebrae. And while the videos rake in millions of views, they leave a lot of us in the field cringing. What's being sold to the public is a parody of what we actually do. Yes, chiropractic care can be powerful. Yes, it can be fast. But no, it should never look like a skydiving harness and a prayer. Not all hands-on care is created equal. In fact, one of the most helpful ways to understand manual therapy is to break it down into 4 distinct categories based on velocity, how fast, and amplitude, how much movement or force. Low velocity, low amplitude. Think gentle. Now this will include massage, mobilizations, stretching, strain, counter strain, trigger point therapy, the stuff that doesn't make loud noises or go viral, but gets solid results. These techniques are widely accepted, well tolerated, and incredibly safe. They're also a cornerstone of care for sensitive patients, acute injuries, and anyone needing a lighter touch. Low velocity, high amplitude. This is where traction lives, the good kind. Flexion distraction, long axis distraction, decompression, all fall under this umbrella. These moves are slow, controlled, and usually involve a sustained stretch or glide. Used properly, they're gentle on the nervous system and ideal for decompressing joints or relieving pressure without sudden thrusts. High velocity, low amplitude thrusts. This is the gold standard. It's what most chiropractors are trained to do. A quick, precise thrust using a short lever arm and minimal movement. The goal is to restore motion and reduce dysfunction, maximum specificity, and minimum risk. When done right, it's effective, efficient, and safe, especially compared to the alternatives. High velocity, high amplitude. Now we're in red flag territory. This is where you find the Y-strap, the spinal slingshot, and other gimmick-heavy maneuvers. These techniques often use long lever, heavy force, and rapid traction, sometimes with tools, straps, or even full-body pulls. And here's the kicker. They break 2 of the 3 core safety principles we're taught in chiropractic school. There's no short lever, no short distance, just speed and spectacle. It's the equivalent of using a sledgehammer where a precision screwdriver would do the job. These high velocity, high amplitude moves aren't just unrefined, they're also unnecessary. There's no condition, no clinical rationale that requires a full body yank to the cervical spine. It's not about what helps the patient, it's about what looks impressive on camera. We don't have any solid research comparing the safety or effectiveness of conventional HVLA adjustments to these viral HVA traction maneuvers. No randomized trials, no large-scale studies, no long-term outcome data. Just a whole lot of dramatic YouTube footage and anecdotal hype. Doesn't mean these techniques are proven dangerous, but it sure as hell doesn't make them safe either. Most of the existing literature on manipulation safety focuses on rotational thrusts in the cervical spine, particularly in relation to vertebral artery strain. Those studies have helped shape how chiropractors evaluate risk in their techniques, and they've made us more careful when it comes to neck rotation. Ironically, that leaves a gap in research when it comes to axial traction, especially when it's delivered at a high velocity. Could axial traction be safer than rotation? Theoretically, maybe. Might even strain the vertebral artery less than traditional neck manipulations. But we simply don't know. And when something combines high velocity, long levers, and no real segmental control, the risk increases no matter what plane you're working in. In evidence-based practice, the absence of research should never be confused with the presence of safety. If anything, a lack of data demands a more caution, not less, especially when it comes to someone's cervical spine. And here's another key point. Just because something feels good or gets a dramatic reaction doesn't mean it's clinically effective. Temporary relief isn't the same as therapeutic change. Without follow-up data, we can't say whether these moves offer any lasting benefits, or if they're just adrenaline, novelty, and placebo. The bottom line, there's no research proving these techniques are better, and no research proving they're safe. It's not a gap I'm willing to gamble with, especially when there are proven, well understood, and precise techniques that get great results without the risk. Every chiropractor goes through rigorous training in spinal anatomy, biomechanics, and manual therapy. Day one, we're drilled on the fundamental principles of a safe and effective adjustment, especially when it comes to the cervical spine. The gold standard for manipulation is high velocity, low amplitude. The high velocity gives us the quick thrust needed to stimulate the joint receptors and restore motion, while the low amplitude ensures we stay within a safe, controlled range of motion. Most importantly, we're taught to use a short lever arm, meaning the adjustment is localized, specific, and directed at a single spinal segment. These principles exist for a reason. They reduce risk, maximize control, and provide a therapeutic effect without unnecessary strain. Now contrast that with the internet famous maneuvers we talked about earlier, the ones that use straps, yanks, and full body traction. These techniques fall into a category I'd call high velocity, high amplitude. They're the exact opposite of what we're taught to do. Long lever arms, high force, wide controlled motion across segments, no specificity, no finesse. It's like the difference between using a scalpel and swinging a machete. Even if we're being generous and assume these moves might have some therapeutic benefit, they still violate 2 out of the 3 of these key principles for safe adjusting. That's not an evolution of care. It's a regression. And here's what really matters. There's no clinical reason to ever perform these types of maneuvers. There's no condition that calls for a rapid full-body spinal yank. There's no biomechanical logic that says, let's just pull hard and hope something good happens. It's not care, it's choreography. So when I use traction in practice, it's low and slow, just like we were taught in school. Controlled, gentle, and designed to gradually decompress the spine, not shock it into submission. Technique matters. It always has. And when chiropractors throw out everything we're taught in favor of flashy internet tricks, they're not just risking patient safety, they're throwing away the credibility of the entire profession. At the end of the day, every treatment decision we make comes down to a simple equation. Do the potential benefits outweigh the risks? When it comes to these viral, high velocity, high amplitude traction maneuvers, the answer to me is a hard no. Let's talk about risk first. Anytime you apply force to the cervical spine, you're working in close proximity to vital neurovascular structures, vertebral arteries, spinal cord, nerve roots. That's why we're trained to be precise, controlled, and selective. The problem with high velocity, high amplitude traction techniques is that they often bypass all of that, delivering force across multiple spinal segments with no segmental contact and no ability to isolate motion. This means you're not just adjusting to a joint, you're gambling with the entire upper spine and everything around it. The potential reward, maybe a satisfying pop, maybe a temporary sense of relief, maybe a good Instagram clip. But that's not clinical success. That's not therapeutic change. That's stimulus without strategy. And at worst, it's a setup for injury. And let's not forget, patients trust us with their health, not for a performance. The moment we start prioritizing dramatic reactions over informed, evidence-guided care, we've lost the plot. We've all had patients ask for that thing they saw online, the neck yank, the strap pull, the full body decompression. It's easy to understand why. These videos are everywhere and they make it look like chiropractic magic. But part of our job as providers is to educate, filter hype from reality, and explain why safety and outcomes will always matter more than spectacle. In an era where clicks and views drive more attention than credentials or outcomes, it's tempting to believe that louder, flashier, and more dramatic means better. But when it comes to spinal care, and especially cervical manipulation, what looks impressive online isn't always what's best for the patient. The reality is simple. High velocity, high amplitude traction techniques aren't supported by research, violate core principles of safe adjusting, and carry unnecessary risk. They aren't innovative, they're reckless. And the moment chiropractic becomes about showmanship instead of skill, we all lose. Real chiropractic to me isn't about straps, theatrics, or making someone flinch for a thumbnail photo. It's about clinical reasoning, precision technique, and deep understanding of anatomy and patient-specific needs. It's about doing the right thing, even if it's not flashy, because your patient's health matters more than your social media engagement. If the chiropractor's chasing clicks instead of clinical outcomes, you're not leading the profession forward. You're turning it into a meme. Let's do better.